You're listening to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast with Jody Livingston and Chris Trent, episode number 94.
Welcome to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast, helping you survive and thrive in youth ministry. And now, your hosts, Jody Livingston and Chris Trent.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the show today. Thanks for tuning in and listening wherever you are and wherever this finds you. Thanks for making this podcast today a part of your day. If you are checking out the show for the first time, welcome. We're glad you're here, joining in with our other 12 listeners. Super excited to have you. And if you are a returning listener, thanks for coming on back, putting up with Chris again. And maybe you're even a member of the super secret podcast group, and we're super glad you are here as well. Fun interview and topic today. I'm excited about this. So this will be fun.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. So, hey, that's Jody Livingston. He lives in California. I'm Chris Trent. I live in Georgia, and we're a couple of youth pastors that love youth ministry. Most importantly, we love teenagers, love working with teenagers in youth ministry. And so that's what we do. And we love investing in youth pastors to help make them better at what they do. So that's what this is all about. Jody, you good, man? How'd ask how your summer is going, but truthfully, we're batch recording this before summer, and we wouldn't be able to answer that question, right?
No, it doesn't even feel like summer in Southern California right now.
Yeah,
It's weird. It's hot where you are and not where I am.
Dude, it's crazy hot in Georgia already this summer. It's nuts. So,
yeah, that's going to change here real abruptly, but right now I'm enjoying it.
Well, hey, if you're listening, thanks for listening. I know if this is because this is going to come out in the middle of summer, and if your summers are like ours, man, you're busy. And so hopefully we can be a little bit of an encouragement to you today. I am excited about today. And before we get to our guest, though, we need to mention our sponsors. We have some amazing sponsors. YM360. Love. They're in the middle of summer, just killing it. I'm sure. Oh, by the way, Jody, I'm trying to sneak up to camp and visit for just like a special extended day this year. I'm going to go up to Covenant, and
I love Covenant.
So good. So anyway, they're in the middle of camp, but they do so much more than camp. They do curriculum, they do books, they do mission trip resources, all kinds of things. And maybe you're in the middle of getting ready for the fall and thinking about what you're going to do next as far as using what kind of curriculum, for the fall. Well, they can help you out with that. Lots of great folks there. And they're also doing some online podcasting type things as well now, and I love what they have to say. So maybe there's some things that we want you to listen to us first, right?
Yeah, of course.
But no, they're talking about some things we're not talking about. So be sure to check out their resources there, because they're just giving that stuff away, which is awesome. So good times.
Because they're awesome. Yeah. So ym360.com, promo code Longer Haul, save you 20% on those things.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
Student Ministry Network. Man, these guys are amazing. They love, they're based out of Georgia, but they also support what we do, and lots of great resources there. You can check out studentministrynetwork.com and find out information about what they do as well. So good times.
Indeed. And then, of course, if you like us, you could subscribe to the show wherever you listen, Spotify or iTunes or podcast player, or,
Yeah. And we're on the old social media as well, Instagram.
Yeah, but we don't really post about youth ministry stuff. We should, but we don't.
Yeah. No,
sometimes.
I don't really. Yeah.
No.
Sometimes.
Yeah, you post about Disney and I post about Volkswagens.
Yeah.
That's pretty much sums up our life. So,
well, hey, how about our guest today?
Yeah, you want to, how about you set up the intro here?
Yeah, he's probably nervous right now as I set this up. But so we have I pitched this idea to Jody. My son, Dylan Trent, just graduated from high school. What? So I said, hey, what would it look like? Because since he was born, he's been involved in youth ministry in some capacity as well. He grew up a youth pastor's kid. So at risk of how crazy or embarrassing this might end up being for me, I thought, hey, what would it look like for him to come on, allow Jody to ask more of the questions. I asked him to kind of prepare by saying, hey, just come up with some pros and cons of being a youth pastor's kid. But with the hopes of maybe saying to some of the folks out there that are, in the process of raising kids, and maybe you're thinking, man, my kid's going to be in my youth ministry soon. Maybe this will be an encouragement to you. So, Dylan, what's up, man? You on there? You live now?
I am.
Beautiful.
What's up, people?
Hey, so you could tell everybody about yourself, though. Like, tell everybody kind of, what your kind of current plans are, where you're working, what you're thinking about doing, and all that.
Yeah, of course. So like my dad said, I graduated last week, and I will be going to KSU in the fall, Kennesaw State University.
Hooty hoo.
Yeah, yeah, hooty hoo. But I actually don't like that catchphrase that much. I think it's a little cheesy, but that's okay. I'm currently working at Chick-fil-A, one of the best chicken franchises in the world, and looking to get promoted near the end of the summer. I'm going to be working there throughout college. I'm going to be majoring in business management, leadership type stuff in the business field. So yeah, that's just some of the things going on. About to, going to be in the middle of summer when this comes out. So I'll probably be having a blast doing some stuff. So
yeah, we have a fun summer plan. A lot of good stuff. So
yep.
More Trent family fun.
That's it.
Oh yeah, Trent family fun.
Cool, man. Well, I'm pumped you're here. We're going to embarrass your dad a little, I'm sure, which is always a plus.
Oh yeah,
and,
of course.
So here I have a few questions. I know you have kind of a few things that you've thought through ahead of time, and
yeah, I got some pros and cons.
I'm sure we'll tackle through them. And then, Chris, if it's okay, I even have some questions for you.
Yeah, of course.
In terms of that, so you want to start? Let's start with your pros list,
okay.
And then that way I don't ask questions that you already have listed.
Okay.
I don't want to steal your thunder early.
Sounds good.
And then I've got some probably more specific questions that I'll ask you as you go. So pros for having
I've
your
not heard
dad
just to go on record. I've not heard any of these. Like he started to tell me a minute ago or a little bit ago, and I was like, no. Podcast fodder. You can't tell me.
Podcast fodder.
Yeah.
Podcast fodder.
I wouldn't let him tell me.
Yeah. Okay, so I have four pros that I came up with that I think are probably the best positive aspects of being a PK for a youth pastor.
That's a YPK. Let's just get that straight.
Yeah, YPK.
That sounds like like the world's going to end.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the first one that I came up with was like, I wrote down all the juicy secrets. I think that's a little intense, but you got to think in context here. So like,
please make number one. I have the best dad ever. Just
no, that's just not happening.
Okay, all right, great.
So I think that it's always been a favorite thing of mine when a trip's coming up or something like D Now is coming up, and my dad just lets me know like a little something that nobody else does know, like a secret or something. It's just always been a fun thing to get to kind of see the behind the scenes aspects. I've been on some of the sets for when they shoot videos, like promotional videos, and been able to do some of that stuff. So that's always been kind of fun. That's kind of one of my first pros because I've always enjoyed that. There is a degree of trust that you have to have with that pro. Obviously, if you told your kid a secret and he immediately went and told all his buddies, then you wouldn't be telling him much more secrets. So I've had to kind of control my how much I tell my friends in order to keep this pro, but it's definitely worth it.
Do you have friends like, hey, tell me what's going on?
Oh yeah. Cause like, so the way our choir missions works is they don't announce where we're going until like 3 months out. It's kind of like a surprise thing, and it's like a huge deal. And there have been several times where I've known, and my friends are like, don't you? And I'm like, oh yeah, I know. And then they're like, where are we going? And I'm like, oh, I'm not telling you. Like,
Meanwhile, Sarah Cottingham is hearing right now that I always tell y'all the secret, and I'm never going to hear it again.
yeah, that's true. Oops. But so that's always been fun.
That's a good pro. That's a good pro.
Yep. So my second one that I got is that a lot of people think pretty highly of my parents. I don't really run into a lot of people that don't know my parents in some capacity, and because they're such good people, which sounds kind of cheesy, but because they are such a good role model, a lot of people have respect for them, and so that almost carries over. It helps with first impressions for me. I don't really have to work that very hard to get a good first impression.
Yeah.
Just because every time I meet somebody, it's like, oh, you're Chris Trent's kid. Or
so you're saying that you're mooching off on my rep. That's what you're saying.
Basically,
Coattails.
I'm mooching off.
Sounds like coattails. Sounds like coattails. Yeah. Now that's interesting that you list that as a pro, because I would think that would also maybe be a con.
Oh, you'll see.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Oh,
All right.
no.
See, look, it's like he's done this before. Who's running this show, Chris? Come on. Yeah. No, but I think that's good, and so I think that's super encouraging, because I know when and Chris, we've talked about this before. When we talk to youth pastors, some are really nervous about that, specifically that aspect of having kids and being in ministry, and so the fact that comes out as a pro should be really encouraging to you if you're listening and worried about that.
Yeah, I think definitely. I agree with that.
Cool.
So my third pro was all about mission trips. So I have ever since I was probably 5 or 6, I have kind of tagged along on mission trips with my mom, because my mom goes and kind of just does her floating kind of thing.
Yeah.
And kind of supports where she needs to support. But ever since I was really young, I mean, I've gone on so many mission trips, more than the usual person have the opportunity to. So it's helped me just to kind of know how mission trips at JFBC play out. And has definitely, like, when I got into high school and I was not with them anymore, like with my parents, on like my dad's trips, and I was on like Bobby Gatlin's trips, I could kind of see where the leadership was coming from, and I could also like be a really strong leader in whatever group I was placed in, just because I had that experience. I had that. I mean, I've been through evangelism training plenty of times.
Sure.
So it's good knowledge to really know how to spread the love of God, because I mean, that's what we're called to do. So that has always been kind of a pro for me, is how much experience I've gotten at such a young age. That kind of it was a really foundational part of my character.
Was there a moment where you were like, man, I've been on so many trips, I just don't want to go on these anymore?
I don't think there's ever really been a point where I have just said, no, I don't want to go on a mission trip.
Yeah.
So I did choose to be a leader on this Dallas middle school mission trip for my dad instead of going to New York, because I had already been to New York. But that's not really, even still, that's not really choosing.
Yeah, to not do it.
Yeah, that's not choosing to not do New York. I mean, if New York was on a different week, I still would have gone. It was just, I wanted to have that leadership opportunity, especially going back to my hometown, where I was born. So it's just like, there's not really ever been a time where I've just been like, yeah, I don't really feel like going on a mission trip.
Yeah,
it's just,
cool.
It's a classic thing.
All right. That's a good list.
I got one more.
All right.
And that is, it's a short one. It's just access to a lot of like wise adults and mentors. My dad has a stocked team of small group leaders, and he knows a lot of great people. And so just them knowing him and them kind of hearing stories about me, they kind of know me a little bit. And that makes it to where, like, when I'm in the halls on Sundays, I get to talk to these people and have good conversation with them. And they're always so wise, and they know, they're mature.
Yeah, sure.
So it's good to have that kind of all those adults that really love you and have seen you grow up in the church as well.
Yeah. So, Chris, how many of those things, as you're hearing Dylan kind of share those things, how many of those are things that you intentionally tried to instill?
Wow, that's a good question. I think most of
Well,
them.
that's why I have a show,
Yeah, that's
right? That's why we do this, because
yeah.
we ask good questions.
I think most of them. I mean, it's I had some. I was blessed with. I've been blessed with some good moments that has encouraged me. Well, when he talked about being able to hear about things before anybody else, I take that back to a Doug Fields moment where I heard him speaking at Simply or one of the conferences, where he talked specifically about the importance of helping your kid to love the church and feel like they're benefiting from you being in youth ministry instead of it hurting. And as a result of that, that kind of impacted the way we did things. And I wanted Dylan and Abby both to feel like, hey, there's a major perk for my dad doing this. Yeah, sometimes it takes,
Yeah.
sometimes it's a little embarrassing. Sometimes it's, takes them away from us or whatever. But at the end of the day, I get to see the t-shirt design before anybody else, or I get to find out a secret about the trip before anybody else. Now,
Yeah, that's true. The t-shirt design is a big awesome
you love
moment.
it. But I don't always. There are moments where I've said to you, Dylan, that I'm not going to tell you this one because I don't want to rob the experience of you finding out with everybody else.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. And I got to the age at one point where I would just tell you to not tell me anything about the D Now opening moments because
Yeah, well, and I've even
our
asked you
church
before,
has
like
this
I've actually,
epic pep rally.
yeah, we've literally said like, I mean, I'll tell you if you want me to tell you, but it's going to be awesome. You sure you don't want to be surprised? Then y'all have gone, okay, don't tell me.
Yep. Nope.
Wait, tell me.
I want to
No,
be
don't tell me.
surprised.
Wait, tell me.
Yeah.
No, don't tell me. Like that's been a conversation in our house before, so
Yeah.
so that part's huge. And I think the other intentionality there is we've intentionally, Wendy specifically has intentionally done the extra work to bring our kids along on trips.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And
Kudos to mom for that one.
So it's, yeah, you owe your mom big time, bro.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, she would work really hard to get us to those trips, and that was always a great thing.
Yeah. But there's some intention. I can't remember what the other things you said. Like,
No, that was it. Just, yeah.
So, yeah.
And obviously, like being surrounded with small group leaders and, I mean, that kind of stuff, that we want to surround all of our students with great leaders. And
yeah,
but cool. What about Chris? What about you on the other side of that? Perks, pluses for having your kids in student ministry?
Yeah. What's been interesting,
like watching him come through now, right? Like in the moment talking about that, but now having kind of survived it.
Yeah.
Officially.
Yeah. It has been, one of the greatest blessings, and I'm not trying to over spiritualize this thing or over emotionalize it, but it's been one of the greatest blessings in youth ministry to get to have my kids come through and get to see them experience all of the things I'm working so hard to do,
Yeah.
So that part has been huge. And the moments we steal together where we talk about things and celebrate things together. As we've gotten older, we go on separate trips and do separate things. And, we come back together and we all show each other our pictures. We throw them up on the Apple TV and watch them together. And I mean, those are some of my favorite memories. Part of what's been a real challenge for me also, because I've, doing the middle school ministry, I can't, you'd have to do the math, Dylan. But for 6 years, I guess it was, I had a kid in the room.
Yeah.
Where I had one of my 2 kids in middle school ministry in the room.
Right.
Yeah. It would be 6 years.
This year is the first year I've not, and I've missed it because I've always had a great resource, a teenager that I could go, hey, how'd that illustration go today? Or how'd that lesson go? Or, hey, did that game we did, was that fun or was that dumb? And not having that in the room, now I can ask other kids, but not having that kid in my house has been a real challenge. And I miss that part for sure. But no, I've loved how. Matter of fact, I would say it like this. For folks listening, especially if you're kind of getting close to that, and maybe the difficulties of having your children in youth ministry, are wearing you out to the point where you're like, it's time for us to move on. We can't keep doing this. If you can hold on a little longer, it's so rewarding to have your kids come through your youth ministry. It's just huge. And it also helps with parents too, because once you've raised teenagers, parents respond to me completely different now because they know my kid and they know I've raised them. So that's good.
Well, and because, you somewhat successfully raised kids, that helps too.
Yeah.
Like if Dylan was like a crackhead, then we'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
So I was like the opposite of the preacher's kid stereotype or whatever, like the bad preacher's kid stereotype.
Yeah. All those trips to Disney. Okay, what about Dylan? What about the other side of that? Negatives, cons, challenges?
So I've got two that like aren't like seriously big time cons, and then I've got one that like could actually be a pretty big con for people. I think I've handled most of the cons all right. I mean, I haven't been affected by being a preacher's kid at all. But I think that there are some. I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah.
So one of the cons, I think, for some people, this would be a pretty big one, is getting called out on stage. It doesn't necessarily bother me. And a lot of times my dad will actually come up, like if it's if he's actually using me as an example, cause nowadays I'm in high school, I'm like out of the program, and he can say, my son who's now in high school, this is an example, and I can take that maturely. But he'll still ask me, if he, can use me as an example for something.
I don't really ask anymore, but yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
Not all the time.
He just doesn't tell you when you were in the room.
Yeah. Yeah. But there, like when I was in middle school, there was always little quips from stage. And for a lot of people, I think that would be pretty embarrassing. I don't think I was never really super embarrassed by it. I think if you were more of an introvert preacher's kid, that would kind of bother you. But I mean, that's not a huge con. I think it's just kind of funny.
It can be a con. It can be.
Yeah. It can't, because all of a sudden, if you were to touch on a subject that I was uncomfortable with, or my friends didn't know about, then that really would bother me.
Yeah, sure.
Because then it would be embarrassing. Or if you were to say something that was embarrassing, or share like a baby picture or something stupid like that. But that didn't really happen that much.
Like he said, that much.
It did happen.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
Well, and just to clarify too, when you say get called out on stage, you're not talking about getting called out by meaning getting in trouble. Like I never called you out on stage like because you're running your mouth in the room or something like that. But you mean getting acknowledged from the stage is what you mean.
Yes. Yeah. Just getting a shout out, or like you would roast me every once in a while. Not like roast me, but like just mess with me every once in a while from stage. So just things like that.
Yeah, the key there is to know your kid, though. And
yeah, sure.
Dylan, most of the time
it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff doesn't bother me. So another one was, so this one, it just kind of has to do with like my dad being such like a lot of people know him, is like when I run into people or even my friends, like my friends do this all the time. And there are these like phrases, right? It's like, you look like your dad, or that's something your dad would say, or, oh my gosh, you sound just like Chris.
Hashtag
like all of
blessed. That's what that is. Hashtag blessed.
No, like those get on my nerve, because like I'll be talking and I'll say something that my dad will say, and somebody will be like, that's what your dad would say. And I'm like, oh gosh. It's just like, or especially the looking like your dad. Like when I run into an adult that I don't know that well, like I was playing pickleball the other day at the church with a bunch of adults. It's like an adult league. And I ran into this guy I'd never met before. And he was like, what's your last name? And I was like, Trent. And he goes, "Yeah, you got some Chris in you." And I was like, "Oh gosh."
Yeah, buddy.
So that's just like it's not like a terrible thing, but it does get on your nerves after a while.
What's it like
Oh,
being
yeah.
at Chick-fil-A? Like, does that play out in Chick-fil-A also for you? Like, I mean, a lot of people know who you are, but you don't necessarily know who they are.
Sometimes,
Because you work
like,
the drive-through a lot.
yes, I work the drive-through a lot, and there will be people who will come through and they'll be like, "Oh, Dylan," and I'll be like, "Oh, hi,"
Oh, hey, stranger.
and I'll be like, "Can I get your name?" Because we have to get the name for the order, and so there's like, in fact, there's a lot of times I've gotten in trouble for not putting names because a person will come through that I should know their name,
Oh my god!
but I've forgotten it, and so like they will come through and they'll be like, "Oh, hey, Dylan, how's this going?" And it's like this personal thing that they know about me, and I just like don't know them that well at all, and I should know their name, but I don't, and I'm just like, yeah.
Hey there, buckaroo.
Exactly.
Buckaroo.
Papa partner. So when that happens, I just kind of don't put a name on the order and then I get in trouble. But that's always, I mean, it's not a terrible thing. It just happens.
Yeah, that's fair. I could see that. It happens on the other side too, just so you know, Dylan. Like,
Yeah.
for a long time, there's a certain moment where you become your kid's parent. So like, I'm sure your dad would attest that there's a certain context now where things flipped and he became Dylan's dad. You weren't
Yeah.
necessarily Chris's son, but now he was Dylan's dad.
I think that's definitely possible. I don't think it happens very much with, I mean, I don't know, Dad, does that happen that much?
Yeah, it happens. Especially in light of like some of your more recent, being in play and some of the things like that you've done, the musical that you did, and
yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, you're finding your own path.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the biggest con I have, and that's the whole phrase "preacher's kid" and the stereotype that comes along with that. This one is probably the one that has affected me the most, just because my personality and the way I am, I highly value being my own person, and I don't like it when people make assumptions about me and my character. So, growing up in the middle school ministry, you've got like kids around that age, like you start to like talk about like it's weird thing to talk about. Like, so basically, like, okay, so my friends are starting to make dirty jokes, right? Something like that. And even though in 8th grade I probably shouldn't be making dirty jokes, at the same time,
Yeah, you should wait.
It's
at
like
least like 9th grade.
9th grade. Okay, whatever. But like they'll be like there was always times where they would stop talking about certain things whenever I showed up, or my friends would not tell me a joke or would whisper something, and there were times in like class or in church or something where they would all whisper to each other a joke and be cracking up and just wouldn't whisper it to me. And I mean, this continued until I was like sophomore, junior year, where it's just like I was almost that goody two shoes to people, people that didn't really know me that well, and even like my best friends would mess with me about it. And I think that's difficult. I think it's difficult for a personality like me who wants to be seen as, like, it's not that I want to be popular, but I also want to be known by people just because I have that mentality of kind of being a leader and having an influence on people. And it's hard to do that when people make assumptions about you.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. Like, so the other night we were, a lot of the seniors were at QT, and I mean, we're all about to go off to college. We're not going to see each other much anymore. And we started doing first impressions, which I have always hated first impressions. And it's because of this very reason, because, I mean, it got to like three out of the 5 people who did them, like, all said that they thought of me as the preacher's kid first impression.
Yeah.
And that's happened every single time I've ever played first impressions. It's like 80% of the group, preacher's kid. That's what they see me as when they first see me. So while it's a good reputation to immediately get from adults, like, adults look at that and they're like, oh, preacher's kid. And that's good for me because I want adults to look at me highly and not like think of me as this, but when it comes to your friends, there's just, it kind of kills some inclusion, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. So you feel like there's a lot of pressure with that also to like live up to a certain standard?
Yeah. I think there's also a lot of pressure. I think that a lot of people kind of hold me to a standard. And so, because like nowadays, like when I do make a joke like that, people are like, oh, Dylan's making a joke like that. It's like, okay, but I can make I'm allowed to be my own person.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Kind of life in a fishbowl.
Yeah. It's very much life in a fishbowl, which can be really good, but it can also be bad.
So I can imagine people listening who maybe have students in their ministries or about to, I could see this being like an interesting episode for them to share with like their kids who would be in there or coming up through that. Like, what are some like practical advice that you would give to a kid whose parents are in ministry?
I think, especially with this preacher's kid thing, I think the best thing to do is to learn how to just not care, which sounds kind of blatant. It sounds like, yeah, just don't care about what they say, which is kind of the standard advice that everyone gives. But I think it's also talking to your best friends and letting them know that that kind of stuff bothers you. I know for me, I told some of my close friends, like, hey, when you do that stuff, when you don't include me in order to like make a joke about me being a preacher's kid, like you don't include me in a joke just to kind of make that extra joke, that doesn't make me feel good. And just being honest with my friends really helped the situation because they included me in things. And I think other advice would just be to kind of like also try to be your own person, not necessarily going out and like do the worst things you could do like some preachers' kids do, but like it's okay to not to sow your wild oats or whatever they call that stuff, but just like don't focus your complete identity in being a preacher's kid.
Yeah.
Like
that's fair.
See how you feel about, like, make sure you know who you are, because if you don't know who you are, then you are going to get defined by that preacher's kid stereotype, and it's going to kind of leave you feeling like you're missing out, or people are leaving you out of things, because they will.
I'd like to jump in too. Like if somebody does take that advice and you're a kid now listening because your mom or dad made you listen to this, and you're like, dude, please finish already. I'm ready to be done. I want to go play Fortnite, whatever. I would say this, and Dylan, you could be honest about this. I want you to be honest about this, but you and I've talked about this before, because I have to remind you every once in a while. I have to say, hey, and this is what I'm saying to you, teenager, if you're listening, and I would say if you're an adult listening, it might be worth you saying this to your kid every once in a while. So here it is. Every once in a while, I've had to say to Dylan, hey, buddy, listen, you got to understand, I don't know what I'm doing. Like,
it's true.
Like, you're real funny. Like, I'm trying to figure this out as I go. I've never raised a teenager before. And like, I know we're in a little bit of a conflict here moment, but you got to meet me halfway on this and realize I'm just trying to figure this out. And we got to start with, I have your best interest in mind, but give me a little break, as far as me getting this exactly right, because I'm just trying, and I would say if you're listening and you're a teenager listening, know this. I mean, most likely, unless you have a sociopath for a parent, um, don't tell them that you think they're that if you do. But most likely they really do want what's best for you, and they just don't always know how to get there, because this is hard,
Yeah,
man. This is hard.
Yeah, I'd like to back that up because there have been a lot of times where I haven't necessarily thought that he was making the right decision, and maybe he wasn't. Like maybe I was completely right about the situation.
Probably not, but go
I
ahead.
don't know. But I think that a lot of times playing it safe is sometimes the smartest thing to do. And even though it might be the uncool thing to not stay out till 12 o'clock, hanging out at QT or wherever, whatever gas station you have locally that you guys hang out at. But like, it's just sometimes it's the right thing to do is to be safe. I think one of the biggest examples right now is like I have all of these senior guy friends from school, and they all want to go down to the beach. There's about 8 of them going down to the beach this week. Um, in Florida, about a 6 hour drive away, and there's not going to be any adults. And there's not going to be any alcohol or drugs or anything. Like they're definitely going to be safe about that stuff. But at the same time, they're going to be near Daytona on Memorial Day. And I was talking with my dad about it, and we were talking about how like whether or not I should go.
And it took us a while to figure this one out.
Oh yeah, it took probably an hour or so conversation of just kind of being honest with what we were feeling about it. And it was just one of these moments where I realized that he didn't, because I know he would let me go down to the beach by myself with a bunch of buddies. Like he would totally allow me to do that. But for some reason, he had this weird feeling about it that was causing him to be a little hesitant. And I picked up on that, and I decided to yield. I was like, I'm just not going to go. Because there's a point where you got to realize like they're in youth ministry for a reason. Like God, they're definitely close to God, and God definitely is telling them like some things.
Just a couple things.
Just a few. So I think when I heard that like he just had a weird feeling about it, it was like, okay, this is not the right decision to go down on this trip. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's probably best for me to just play it safe and stay home and work a couple extra days and try to do something later in the summer.
Dylan, do you feel like there's, we talked about kind of that identity piece as a pro and as a con. Do you think that has in some ways served as a bit of a safeguard for you in some of that decision making like you're talking about as well?
I think could you like,
yeah, like, is it, okay. So is that something like knowing that identity piece that you are known, recognized, often defined as a preacher's kid or as whatever, has that kind of served to kind of protect you at times from making some really dumb decisions? And then maybe even on the other side, has that kind of almost in kind of moments of rebellion forced you into some of those?
I think that there have been certain situations where it has kind of either stopped me or made me make a decision. Like in times where I am frustrated and someone makes a preacher's kid joke about me, and I say something that a preacher's kid wouldn't normally say back to them, just to kind of stick it in their face that they're wrong about me. Those kind of situations have happened. And just to be clear, I'm not talking about like cussing them out, but I am talking about like saying something maybe inappropriate or being mean, kind of a jerk, to people who are kind of messing with me about that certain field. I think that was one of the negative things about it, was sometimes people would get on my nerve and I would kind of snap. It happened once in D Now where a kid said, "Oh, hey, look, there's a kid who thinks he's cooler than everybody just because his dad is the youth pastor." And I literally snapped. I was holding a stick and I destroyed it
You
on the
stabbed him in the
ground.
neck with it. No, you didn't. I'm just kidding.
No,
Ran away.
but I did act in anger towards him. But I also think it has stopped me from making some stupid decisions as well. Realizing that my reputation was on the line.
Yeah, but and tell me, Dylan, if I'm off on this though, because one thing that I'm thinking about right now that has really been a core value for us, and I want to give Dylan credit where credit is due. Part of what helps him to be the guy that he is and the man that he is has been his relationship with God is his own, and we intentionally did not play by the church rules on that, but rather allowed Dylan to make his decision to follow Christ on his own time. Because we wanted that to be authentic for him. We wanted him to have those experiences where he grew in his relationship with Christ, including even, I would say that we would not be your stereotypical, every night at dinner, have a family devotion type thing.
No,
you know, and I'm not saying those are bad, per se, but I'm just saying we've just intentionally given you space for your faith to be yours. And I think a lot of the decisions that you make are based on, being a PK maybe plays into that, reputation, and you want to honor us. But I think the foundation of that is because you love Jesus and you have a little bit of a healthy fear of God, in that.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely some like the character pieces don't, like, me choosing not to do certain things in certain situations doesn't necessarily derive from fear of losing the preacher's kid mentality, or even my dad being negatively affected.
It comes from knowing that I will kill you. That's what it's about.
Yeah, it more comes from knowledge of what's right and what's wrong. Yeah, I think it really just comes from growing up in that we've always been very open and honest, and I think that I really do have a pretty solid idea of what's right and what's wrong, and that a lot of that comes from my dad, because it's just.
But it's not because I'm a youth pastor; it's
me.
because we follow Jesus.
No, it's not. Exactly. Yeah, and I've never been forced to do a devotion, or anything like that. There have been times where honesty was provided, and I also have gone to my dad and been like, "Hey, I need a devotion. Like, what can I do?" And he'll give me like a really good devotion, but it only comes when that kind of help only comes when I go to him.
Yeah.
And like in passing, like he doesn't ever sit down and be like, "You're not right with God. You need to do this."
Well, I've been meaning to talk with you about a little something there, buddy, and I decided to wait to the podcast. No, no, and I think part of that, and I would say this, and I don't know everything, and I really am trying to figure this out as I go still. But that said, I think there is great wisdom in allowing your kids a little space, and not forcing them to do some things. And I would say this: I know beyond a shadow of a doubt there are some youth pastors who do give in to their own reputation, the temptation to focus on their own reputation. Let me say it that way. And they try to do things with their kids, or they try to get their kids to act a certain way in order to not damage their reputation. And I think that's when it gets dangerous for you and your kid.
I think that's where it gets toxic, because especially like like if that would have happened for me, I have way too much of a rebellious nature. Not rebellious, but I have way too much of a want to be my own person
Yeah, you get that from
mentality.
your mom.
That if-
Totally. 100%.
And you're hard-headed too. And I think that if that would have been the situation, if I would have been truly controlled and not been allowed to mess up on my own, I think I would have been. I probably wouldn't be talking on the podcast today. I probably wouldn't be wise enough to be talking on the
No,
podcast.
we'd have it, but we'd be talking about having a prodigal son instead. You know?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So, Chris, then on the other side, because as you know, as Dylan's talking and as you guys are sharing, obviously there's been a lot of freedom given and trust given. I'm assuming, and I'm asking because I already know a lot of this, just knowing you guys, that it's not free reign, right? That there still are some boundaries that you guys have put in place and some expectations that you have. Like, where's the balance in that, and how does that play out in that whole thing?
Yeah, I think I try to raise him as a good dad, not as a youth pastor. You know, I'm trying to raise my kids as a godly father. And so, yeah, I mean, we've had guidelines, and we still have guidelines. And gosh, and Dylan, we're having these conversations right now, right? Because you're a high school graduate. Just the other day, we were downstairs, and we were like, okay, how do we navigate this now? You have freedom.
I mean, yesterday night I was at a grad party and he left, and it was one of these like, okay, do I need to tell him now that I'm going to hang out with buddies? Yeah, probably. I mean, in that situation, I normally play it safe and I give him a text like, hey, I'm going here. But as I've grown, like for the past 3 months, it's kind of been one of these slowly, gradually going more towards, instead of laying out the exact plans, saying, hey, I'm going here tonight. I might go somewhere else, but I'm going to be home by blank. And really the one thing that's never changed is just when I'm going to be home. Just because that's affecting the sleep schedule.
Yeah. But even like if you talk about just moral type issues, Jody, like what type of movies are you allowed to watch, and what type of whatever music are you allowed to listen to, and all these things.
Yeah.
Dylan, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you've ever felt that our rules were based on the fact that I'm a youth pastor, but they were based on the fact that we think this is the right way to live.
Oh, yeah. No, I never really thought, oh, he's just saying this because he's a youth pastor. Like, I never really thought that was the case. I've really never looked at you with in a cheesy youth pastor sense, unless you're doing magic. And that's just, if you're doing magic, then it's just cheesy, super cheesy. But a lot of people like it, so I guess you can keep doing it.
Thank you for your permission. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm adding that to my cons, because that is the most embarrassing moment when he pulls out magic in front of my friends. Oof.
I would like. I'd like to clarify though.
There's so many things I want to say right now.
It's not because it's embarrassing. It's because in that moment
my friends
love it, and he and I'm taking his attention.
Oh gosh, it's awful. It's like I'll be hanging out with my best friend or something, and we'll go back to the house, and my dad will be like, hey, you want to see a new magic trick? And there's like 20 minutes of my time with this friend gone, because they want to see it. They love to see it.
Well, yeah. So what I'm hearing, magical. Dylan, is that you need to be a better magician than your dad.
Yeah.
Then they won't want to see his tricks because they'll all be lame compared to what you're doing.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I'm just not.
He's good at sponge balls. So yeah.
Hey,
that's true.
I like sponge balls.
Yep.
Well, cool, man. Well, this has been fun. Any last thoughts from either of you guys?
Should we express our love to each other or something? I mean, what are we supposed to do right now?
Undying love.
I don't know.
We'll hug it out later.
Yeah, you should.
No, man. Listen, it really is. And I think, Dylan, you would say this too. it's good. It's been good.
Nah.
Yeah, thanks, you jerk. Which means yes.
Yes, it's been good.
And
It's been really good.
So we're thankful. I mean, I'm thankful, to have my kid this whole time. And he is going to KSU, which means he's going to be local still, which is kind of an extra perk for us. But no, man, it's good. And I appreciate you coming on, bud, and sharing your heart. I'll tell all your friends you did this so they can listen.
I might post on it on my story.
I don't know, you got pretty open there. I don't know if I'd be telling everybody.
Do you guys have an Instagram or something?
Yeah, hey, as we're wrapping this up, great episode. But Jody, doing this a little different. We'll do our wrap up right now if that's cool with Dylan on, because one of our sponsors is YM360, and they do Generate Camp.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan's been in Generate Camp. Do you love Generate Camp, buddy?
I have. I love Generate Camp.
What are some of your favorite parts of it?
Well, I never actually went to Generate as a student. We didn't start going to Generate until
because it just started. It's like 3 or 4 years old now. So yeah.
So I've only been a leader, but I will say it's a great campus. Covenant College is amazing. It's beautiful. The staff is wonderful. Oh my gosh, they do such a good job.
Roger hires the best people.
Oh yeah, he does. I mean, he hired Finn for crying out loud.
But anyway, okay,
yeah. We should get him to listen. Anyways, but the staff is incredible. The rooms are great. The food is awesome. I mean, for camp food, it's pretty good. And then you've got the rec days are great. The messages are amazing.
Yeah, they always bring in awesome people. So.
Yeah, and I mean the spirit, I think that's one of the best things is like the spirit and the amount of fellowship you have. Like if I was a student, I would appreciate that big time because like the amount of spirit that not only the staff brings, but like the natural competition creates. Because like I don't know if anybody knows this, but like, or anybody listening knows about this, but the unique thing about the camp is you've got the pack and the pride. It's like it's like each, if you go and like you're either on the pack or you're on the pride and your whole church is on that team. And like, if your team wins more games or like, there's all these little things you can do, almost Harry Potter style, like, you know how the Hogwarts houses get the points or whatever, and at the end there's a winner.
Yeah, but since it's church, we'd have to use something different because that sounds.
Oh, my bad.
It's like if Lord of the Rings had a camp.
Yeah.
Who also had magicians and
yeah. It's a good week.
Good. Well, we love them, and I just thought since Dylan was on, we'd get him to speak, from personal experience about Generate. So thank you, YM360. Y'all check them out. Also check out studentministrynetwork.com. Those guys are awesome as well. Love Rick Smith. So great. Anything else, Jody?
No, I think that's it, man. Thanks for coming on, Dylan, and sharing all kinds of dirt on your dad. We appreciate that. We're welcome anytime. And
hey, we could end with this right here, though. Dylan, I need to give you Jody's cell phone, by the way, so that when you're at Chewy's, you can also send Jody pictures.
Hey, I'm down.
Because
Chewy's is the best. And
it is the best.
Creamy jalapeno ranch.
I found it.
Listen, Eddie.
You guys stink so bad.
Dude,
I'm trying to figure out how to make it.
I might go there
we should go tomorrow.
After. Yeah.
Okay. Well, enjoy it. I'm sure it'll be great. Anyway, well, thanks for coming on, and man, I think that's super helpful and encouraging for folks to hear, and I think practical for parents who are in that season and who are about to be in that season, and kids who are in that season and about to be in that season. So, man, I appreciate it. It's been good. It's been good.
Yeah, of course.
So, cool. Be sure, if you like the show, make sure you subscribe to it. Head over, check out ym360.com. Use that promo code LongerHaul. Save 20%. And, of course, Student Ministry Network guys as well. And I think that'll do it for today. So we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Good times. Awesome.
Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast at www.thelongerhaul.com.